changing some valve cover gaskets on this 1997 Toyota 4Runner. So this is the 3.4 liter V6, and the valve covers are kind of buried underneath a bunch of stuff. So we got to take off the upper intake, air ducting, and that should be it. But there's a lot of vacuum lines and stuff we got to unplug in order to get those off. So we'll get started with that. So first I'm going to take off all these throttle cables. Usually, you can just open the throttle blade with your hand, which gets slack in the cable, so you can slide them out like that. This one here, just pull the cable, slide it out. This one, slide it out. Got those unhooked. And then a 14mm bolt will hold on this bracket for the cables. So we'll just do that. And then I always like to screw in these a couple turns, all these various bolts, so I remember where they go. I'll just undo this little bracket here on the throttle body. Okay, got all those out of the way. Now I'm going to go ahead and undo the air ducting. A couple of vacuum lines on this little box here to undo. Unplug your mass airflow sensor right here. Alright, it's time to start unplugging various vacuum lines. Now if you're worried about forgetting where each one goes, you could maybe put a piece of masking tape on it and number them all. So this would be number 1, so 1 goes to 1 maybe. For the most part though, these factory hoses are kind of shaped, and they seem like they kind of just want to fall back into where they went originally, so I'm not going to worry about it too much, but if you were, that might be something you could try to do to keep everything in order. Unplug from over here what we can. Same thing goes for these. I mean, you could label them, but they'll only plug into where they belong, and the wires kind of want to have memory from being bent to go back to where they want, so they usually just kind of fall back in place. Now there are a couple of hoses underneath here, underneath the throttle body, but I found that it's a little easier to take those off once I take the bolts out for the intake, and then I can kind of tilt it back to get better access to those. Onto the driver's side, so we've got a diagnostic port here for Toyota. Just push that little tab, and then you can slide that right off the bracket. Push that down out of the way. 10mm here for this ground. Vacuum hose here. One's for the brake booster, it looks like. Back to the front of the engine, a couple more little vacuum hoses to undo. And there's one for the PCV valve. There's one more back here. If you follow this tube, it goes in between the intake runners and comes out the back, and there's a little line back here you just unplug. It goes into what appears to be like a fuel regulator. Got a peek down in here to show you. So there's one of the bolts. That right there is a stud. So you gotta take that off. That off. And then you got more on the other side. So there's not much holding that on. So we'll go ahead and take those off and pull this loose. Take these coils off. Again, you could label these if you wanted to. I just know that these are got fit length spark plugs, so spark plug wires. So you know, obviously the longest one's going to go here, the middle's there. So I'm not going to bother marking them because they all kind of only reach to the hole. They only reach good to the hole they're supposed to go in. So, but you could label them with like a marker or something if you're worried about getting them crossed up. Pop out of there. Throw them out here, out of the way. Now I'll just undo the, I think, 8 bolts in the valve cover. Alright, time to change these little seals that go around the spark plug holes. Put a little oil on them so they'll slide in easier. Yep. So I ended up having to use a 32mm socket just to fit around it to help tap them in. Now we have the valve cover gasket itself. Let's see. Truth be told, this is the second time I've done this job on this car. One reason is these leaked. These are the little washers that go around the each bolt, and the kit I got didn't come with new ones of these, so I didn't put them in, and they leaked. And another reason is because I over torqued the bolts and actually broke an ear off the old valve cover. So that was like a $200 mistake. So be real careful not to over torque these. So I noticed when I originally took this apart, it looked like it had little gobs of silicone on the corners. I believe those are like, would be like camshaft mains, I guess, and there's another one. I can't really see it, but it's underneath all those wires and stuff. So anyway, so before you go put your new valve cover on, I'd just go ahead and dab the corners of that thing right there, and on the other side, and then on the front as well with some silicone to help it seal. Okay, here comes probably the worst part of this whole job, trying to jam the valve cover back on while keeping the gasket on it in between all these wires and things. The other side's a lot easier, but this side's a pain, so I'll do this side first to get it over with. Okay, I got it in place, but I need to double check to make sure the gasket didn't fall off. I think it's good as far as I can tell. Alright, this side's a little easier to put on. You still need to make sure your gasket doesn't come off while you're trying to jam this in here. Okay, I'm putting my new masher seals, as they're called, on my bolts. Put the bolts back in. I'm going to go to torque this down. I'm not sure. You might want to look up what the actual, I'm sure there's a way they want you to do this in particular, but I'm just going to go from the center and work my way out in small increments. I'm not going to torque it down really hard at all, but I'm going to just keep snugging them up a little bit by little, just going from the inside and then going out. I think I'm just going to use one of these to tighten them down, that way I can't over tighten them like I did last time. Okay, now that I have the valve covers on them and torqued down, I'm just going to start putting things back the way they came off. So I'll start with these ignition coils. There's my spark plug wires going over to the other side of the engine. Go underneath everything. Alright, now remember, before I torque this thing down, there's some hoses and stuff under here that's easier to plug in. Underneath the throttle body. Coolant hose. Another coolant hose. Vacuum hose. I'm gonna get my pliers. Something's not letting it go down. Alright, now I've made sure you got nothing pinched underneath there. Just go ahead and put our 4 bolts back in that hold this thing on. Fortunately, my breather hose for the valve cover has come apart, so I'm gonna have to get a new line for that. So here's a pretty important vacuum line for your brake booster. Put that guy back on. Don't forget our extra diagnostic port. Down here we got that ground. A couple of things looking at this. I believe. Yep. Alright. So give this thing a look over, make sure I didn't forget anything, and fire it up. See if it still leaks.